Today, after the 10 o'clock service, is our annual meeting, and I'm guessing that you are here at 8 o'clock because you're not going to be here at 10 for that. So I want to share with you a little bit of my address to the congregation, just so that you are informed and in the loop about what's going on. Epiphany has had a great year this year. We've added Brian O'Rourke to our staff, which is wonderful, and that's thanks to the generosity of a lot of people. And we've also began to develop a communications position, which we're still working out the details of how we're going to handle that financially. We do have some challenges ahead of us this year, some of them quite significant, particularly in terms of our finances. Our staff makes up 60% of our budget. We have a very lean budget, which our treasurer can tell you about any time. 20% of our budget goes to pay off the debt for this building. So each month, I sign a check for $10,000 to the bank. Now, if we were paid off in full and we had that $10,000 to work with, we wouldn't be having this conversation about the challenges that we are facing financially. But this is the reality of our life here. We're a new church. The church was pretty much bought on loan, this building. Mitchell Hall is paid in full, but this building we've been paying a loan on for a long time, and probably will for a long time. So it's important that you know that we are healthy and good for the size church that we are. We have the right staff, everything's going well, but we also are a bit hamstrung with our debt. I, however, hold strong to my conviction that Epiphany is a community that can meet whatever challenges come our way. We are healthy, vibrant, growing. We have high-quality programs that are staffed by people who have a real passion for what they do, who see their work as their vocation, that they do for the sake of God, for the love of God, and for the love of God's people. Now, today's readings are absolutely spot on for an annual meeting. The reading from Corinthians is one of my favorites. St. Paul uses the metaphor of the body to describe how we function as a community and the important part each and every one of us plays in that function. It is one of the most profound passages I can think of for acknowledging each and every unique contribution that you all make to the life of this church. What we give, the way that we participate in this community, and of course in the world around us, we do because of our love for God and our love for each other. This is the primary way we practice our faith, by giving of ourselves and the whole of our lives to God, who loves us so dearly. Today's gospel tells a story about Jesus teaching in the synagogue. He reads the following from the Isaiah scroll. "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." Jesus announces that the Spirit of God is with him. And then he tells us what this means. It means bringing good news to the poor, release to the captive, sight to the blind, freedom to the oppressed, and to tell everyone of God's favor. Through our baptism and our membership in this body of Christ, the Spirit of God is upon us as well. The Spirit of God has anointed us in baptism to bring good news to the poor, release to the captives, sight to the blind, freedom to the oppressed, and to show everyone how much they are loved by God. Now, this is a tall order. How do we do this? At Epiphany, we do so in many ways. The most obvious is through Epiphany Outreach, which supports many local, national, and international agencies committed to ending poverty and hunger and increasing health and education, as well as agencies that respond to needs in times of disaster. Now, poverty, captivity, blindness, and oppression are broad categories, and there's all kinds of ways that we can look at it. There are lots of ways that people experience poverty, captivity, and oppression. There are many ways that people are blind. That has nothing to do with their eyes. It's a way of describing a variety of suffering that is just part of our human condition. The good news is that with God, our human condition is not limited to our suffering. We live in an affluent and high-functioning area. And I suspect that the most common forms of poverty, captivity, and oppression that are experienced in our area are things like loneliness, isolation, anxiety and depression, grief, addiction, mental and physical illnesses, in addition to just living during a time where the economy is tough. How do we respond to these needs in our own church community as well as in the community at large? At Epiphany, we offer fellowship opportunities, from coffee hour to music guild events to Red Door Vineyard events to small group opportunities such as the healing service, education for ministry, a weekly Bible study. We offer places for people to connect, to be known, to see the face of God in one another, and to know that none of us is ever alone. We support local groups who do this work as well, and by support I mean host them on our campus. Groups like the Conejo Valley Depression Support Group, which was actually started by a member of this church. We have AA groups, PFLAG, Parents, Friends, and Family of Lesbians and Gays, and many others that use our space to do their work in the world. I think what's important to note about this idea of being part of the body of Christ, called to do the work of Christ in the world, is where that work begins. It begins first and foremost inside each one of us. We all know what it means to suffer in some way. It is my hope and prayer that we have each experienced what it means to give that suffering to God, and to see the power of God's love in our lives transform our suffering into joy and freedom. I mean, that is the power of the cross. Being able to give that suffering over to God and to see joy and freedom come out of it. This is where our ministry begins. From this place of knowing the transforming power of God's love, all things are possible with God's help. So this is what I want us to keep in mind as we close out 2012 and as a community of faith move into 2013 with the unique challenges that we have ahead of us. To remember that all things are possible with God's help.